everybody, it's Dr. Sarah Godfrey of the Health Bridge. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Pedram Shojai.
Well, hello, Sarah, and hello, everybody.
Hey. So, Pedram, I wanted to talk about vaccines today, and here's why. I've been following some of the debate that's happening around Robert Kennedy Jr.'s new book. He's been talking about Thimerosal, which is ethyl mercury preservative used in some of the vaccines that are out there. And I also felt like you're coming up against this. You had your medical training where you learned about the public health benefits of vaccination, and now you have this beautiful new son and you have to make a decision about vaccination. So let's take on vaccination today.
Let's do it. Yeah, I mean, I am stuck right in the middle too, because, you know, I've got all my friends that are like, absolutely no vaccines, what are you, crazy? And then my wife's best friend's a pediatrician at Kaiser, and she's like, he's gonna get polio, you know, and it's just this weird kind of juxtaposition of realities, and you're trying to figure out which reality is actually real, because there's, you know, three sides to every story, and we're trying to figure out what works. And, you know, I've got my opinions on it, and we could roll with that and kind of figure out what that is. It's obviously a hot topic, and I'm not going to say that I have all the answers because I'm still researching, but you guys can look into the mind of someone who is, you know, trained to look at this stuff and is still confused about it, right?
That's such a good point, because I think that, you know, one of the debates, one side of the debate when it comes to Robert Kennedy Jr. is that, you know, the lead scientific writer at Slate and also at Time Magazine is saying he's not honoring the science. And then the people who are anti-vaccine are saying, well, there's a conspiracy here. You know, the medical professionals are in bed with the industry that makes vaccines, and I am not going to vaccinate my kid. And I agree with you. You know, I'm still in the place of trying to gather all the science and review it. And I tend to be one of those people who chooses the middle path. And that certainly was the case. I mean, when I learned about vaccination going back 20 years ago in medical school, I could see the public health benefit of it, right? I mean, we basically got rid of polio. And, you know, if you take something like pertussis, I'm going to just, you know, put that hat on right now of a public health official. We have an epidemic of pertussis right now in California. We have a total, you know, in the US of about 48,000 cases of pertussis, also known as whooping cough, which is something that babies can be affected by. It's highly contagious, and there's about 20 cases a year of people who die of pertussis, little babies. Mm-hmm. And it's totally preventable with vaccination. So on the one side, we've got this pro-vaccine side of the world, and then on the other side, we have people who are saying, I think vaccination is linked to an increased risk of autism and autism spectrum. I think the preservatives that are still being used, like Thimerosal in the flu vaccine, are neurotoxin, and it's not a good idea to vaccine anytime, anywhere. And when I came up against this, when I had my first baby, and the pediatrician gave me the long list of all the different vaccinations that my poor little baby was supposed to have, I freaked out, and I chose a more compassionate schedule.
That's a big one. That's a big one. Is, you know, I just had Tom Maltaire over at the house helping. We've torn out our back lawn, by the way, and turning my entire house into an edible garden, and put in raised beds and all of it. And it was just like, you know what, screw this. We're not going to be those guys. We're going to do the right thing. And so we got to, you know, talking a lot. And autism came up, and he's up on the research very much. He's on the autism research board and all this. And, you know, here's my stance on it. Mercury sucks. Never take mercury. Don't take anything that the body doesn't like. If there's preservatives, there are ways to get the vaccines in a healthier capacity. But it's the body's ability to defend itself and not get overwhelmed. The United States has an insane vaccination schedule. If we had an opportunity, we'd use 25 vaccines in a single morning on a baby to just get it done. And it, you know, kind of speaks to how we live our lives and how we run our economy and our world, is just more is better. And a lot of the thinking out there now is that the body will just get overwhelmed. And so it's not like it was a single cause and a single vector saying, well, this caused autism. I just saw a study a couple days ago saying, oh, no. We figured it out. It's moms who are taking SSRIs who have a higher, incidence of autistic children. So there's the answer. And the answer is none of it's the answer. It's all of it. It's the environmental toxins, the mercury, it's the microbiota in the gut, it's the environment in which the baby grows up, and eventually the baby's body can start to cry uncle, and that's when bad things happen. And that's the thinking that makes most sense to me, right? Is multifactorial.
Yeah, such a good point. I feel like if we dial back to the 1960s, we used to think that autism was caused by poor mothering. And thank goodness we, turned that around. But this idea that autism is genetic or that there's one single cause, it's just totally been disproven. We know that autism is definitely multifactorial. Environmental toxins are a very important component, but it's when you have a susceptible individual, a baby, who gets those certain environmental toxins, that's when you start to have an increased risk of something like autism or autism spectrum. So it's not quite as simple as just taking SSRIs. That's a conversation for another time. But it's this susceptibility, having an immune system that is vulnerable, that I think is a problem. And I agree with you. I think the schedule that we have right now is insane. And that way of giving babies such a large volume of vaccinations over a short period of time, I feel like that has not been tested and proven with the tincture of time the way that I would want to feel comfortable about it as a mother.
Yeah, and there's reasons why people have chickenpox parties, and there's reason why, certain exposure is fine. Our take on it is if it's not a life-threatening disease and they may or may not get it, then the kids won't, we're gonna, avoid getting those vaccines for the kids. Our contributing factors, things that make it a little more complicated, is I'm a filmmaker and I want to take this kid to Africa and India and all these other places in a very young age to just cruise with us and see the world. And then, man, there's stuff, right? There are diseases that are out of control. I mean, look at North Africa right now, West Africa, really, Ebola and all the stuff. I mean, there are diseases that can be prevented in your child by getting vaccines, but the way that it's done in America, like anything else, is just overboard and insane, and it's becoming very campy, and people are getting polarized, and people are really pissed off on both sides of the equation, because I think that it's just, again, it's that vector type of science saying, well, if it's not this, then what is it? And the multifactorial piece is missing. I mean, where's the kid's vitality? What was mom's microbiota like as the kid passed through the vaginal canal? Is the kid healthy in that capacity? And so these are the questions that are the tougher questions, because then we got to start looking at all the crap that's in the house that's poisoning our children every day and saying, oh my God, is this contributing?
Yeah, such a good point. And I appreciate that, having a more holistic, integrated view. It's not as simple as vaccines, yes or no. It's also, how do you architect the rest of the life for this precious baby and make decisions about vaccination that resonate with your values and also are thinking of the health of your baby. I want to go back to pertussis for a moment. Can you do a whooping cough? How's your whooping cough, Pedram?
I'm not even going to try.
It sounds kind of like a seal. I don't even know if I could do it, but maybe by the end of the show we could both try to do a whooping cough. But I just was looking at the data in California, because we've got an epidemic in California, and California is one of those megatrend states. So this is something that may be coming to a state near you. We know that in 2014 there is about a 30% increase in pertussis or whooping cough. It's mostly affecting babies up to 3 months of age. And, the death rate is not insignificant. So this idea that you don't vaccinate your kid, I don't know that that necessarily is the right answer. It's certainly not one size fits all right answer for everybody. But it may be, if you live in California or if you have a pertussis epidemic, that makes the list, that makes the cut in terms of choosing to vaccinate your child. The other point I want to make is about thimerosal. Fortunately, about 13 years ago, this mercury-laden preservative was removed from the pediatrics vaccinations. But it wasn't removed from all the adult vaccinations. In fact, when I worked at Kaiser, there was still thimerosal in the flu vaccines that we were given. So you want to make sure that you're asking about this. If you're an adult, you don't have kids, this isn't relevant to be talking about the vaccination schedule in children. think about, as you come into flu season, whether you're going to choose to have the flu vaccine, and ask whoever's given it to you whether it's thimerosal free. I think that's an important point. Even if the science on thimerosal is debatable, I think it's a good idea to avoid it.
I haven't gotten a flu vaccine ever. And my flu strategy in any given year is to not drink milk, not eat sugar, not go to sleep too late, and not destroy my vitality so my body can fight off whatever it is. And then we have lysine, we have essential oil, we have all kinds of things that we can use. And once in a while you get a flu, you get a flu. But it's not worth it for me to get the vaccine. And I'm going to knock wood. I mean, I might get the flu every third year, be down for a day. Is it worth getting mercury poisoning? And you got me thinking about that, because we did our lab work with Dr. Alan Christensen, and we've been clean. I mean, I'll have a fair amount of sushi, and there's some tuna in there once in a while, but I got all the amalgams out of my mouth. I've done all the work to avoid mercury as much as I can, and we go back and do blood work and my mercury levels are back up. And so I'm scratching my head saying, what the hell? Now I'm thinking all my trips to Africa and India with the vaccines we had to get, going, oh man, did that sneak in?
Yeah. Oh, I'm really glad you raised this, because I also don't get flu vaccines anymore. But as you know, when you're in health, and when I was working for Kaiser for 10 years, I got a flu vaccine every year. There's a lot of peer pressure to get it, and to, avoid the sick days, and also not be contagious and give it to your patients. And so there was a lot of pressure to get flu vaccines. I haven't traveled to Africa, but I've certainly gotten my share of vaccines over the years. And I also am toxic in mercury, and I'm scratching my head as well, because I'm not eating sashimi the way that I used to. But one of the things that happens for perimenopausal women, women 35 to 45 plus, is that when you get exposed to mercury and to other heavy metals, you store it in your bones. And then after age 35, you start to pull up your bone. It's almost like a trust fund, and you're starting to make deposits up until age 35. And then you start to withdraw the money after age 35. And when that happens, I'm 47 years young, you are also unleashing those heavy metals that have been stored in your bone. And I think that's the key reason why my mercury levels in the toxic range. Maybe it's the vaccination over time, and then the combination of perimenopause and pulling up the bone where I've stored mercury.
We need to get Tom Malter back on the show. He was telling me some crazy stuff about how this Geneva Convention happened a couple years ago in Europe, where all these top scientists met and agreed and were basically like, here's some unequivocal proof evidence that there's too much mercury and it's killing us, and it's a big problem, and it's coming mostly from coal power plants and all this other kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, somebody came in and put the kibosh on it and said, we need to look at this for another 5 years, right? And they're like, dude, we've proven it. Like, we're the best scientists in the world. Why do we need to wait? We need to tell everybody about this. And so they put this like little kind of gag order on it. And now EDTA and all these things that are being used for challenges to discover how much mercury you have in your system are getting pulled off the market. And so you can't even figure out how much mercury you have because of some of these kind of tricky maneuvers, because someone wants to sell more coal, right? So there's this kind of dark side element that he was bringing up that was just really making my skin crawl. But I think we'd be remiss to not at least have him on the show again and share that information with our audience. Because look, industry is all about making money. And so what if there's a little mercury, right? And there's so much mercury getting dumped into the oceans from China that's working its way into our food system and everything else, that I don't even know if vaccines are what we should be talking about when it comes to all of these things, right? Autism is obviously not genetic, because it's got 3-fold, 6-fold, 10-fold increases happening, and that's not how genetics works. So when you start then looking at environment and environmental factors that could be causing it, man, you can't leave any stones unturned. So what about all the mercury in the ocean?
Great point. Well, I think we should go to the dark side with Tom Malter. Let's have him back on the show. We talked about the microbiome last time, and I basically won't shut up about the microbiome, but I think we should have him come back on, talk to us about autism and about mercury, and any of the conspiracy that's out there. I think it's helpful to have the straight up conversation about it. So I agree with you there. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's gross. And, you know, you have children. You know, I've got a baby son. Like, we got a world we want to preserve. So this is the thing, right? Like, parents are trying to do the right thing, and we're waiting for medical professionals to tell us the answer. Well, we're both medical professionals, and I'll be the first to say, I don't know the answer. It's complicated, right? And the people who are out there saying this is the answer aren't looking at how complicated it actually is. So it's everything that's affecting us that might be causing everything that we're looking at. And so the way we do science is fundamentally changing because we're realizing that the complexity of the ecosystem has so much to do with how our bodies are responding that it isn't just a vaccine that could be the culprit. And that's really the point I'm making after all the research I've done on this for my own child is, you know, I got him on Donna Gates's probiotics. I got him, you know, eating zucchini and not, you know, fruit at first. And we're working on all the things to enhance his vitality so that he has a force field. And when things come, his body can be resilient enough and not have to build so many antibodies to so many different things at the same time. And eventually collapse under the weight of that and start to, you know, show up on this spectrum, which is also something we don't really understand.
Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. And you know, we both are hypothesizing about the role of our previous vaccination, whether that's connected to the mercury toxicity that we just detected before we started our gong. And we really don't know. I mean, we don't know whether it's the tuna that we ate when we had a dinner together, Pedram, or if it's the vaccinations that you and I both had. We really don't know. But what is under our control, it's the things that you've been mentioning, you know, the foods that we're eating, especially the probiotic foods. Zucchini, not fruit. That's going to be my new mantra. I think that's awesome.
Thank you. Well, and I look at, you know, what happened with me. And, you know, my elevated, you know, fatty liver, but not fatty liver, but on the way to fatty liver stuff. And, you know, I grew up in a culture where there's a big bowl of fruit on the table and mom's like looking at you saying, hey, why don't you eat more fruit? And so I grew up eating a lot of fruit, and fructose doesn't metabolize the same way as a sugar, and it could be a problematic thing. And so, you know, now that I know better, my kid doesn't eat the same way. Right, and so we're learning a lot of things as we go along. A lot of these things we knew, you know, a long time ago. I just thought I was bulletproof. So, you know, in terms of what vaccines to get, we could maybe go to, you know, go to facebook.com/thehealthbridge. And if you're interested in that, you know, I could get the alternative vaccine schedule that our pediatrician is working with this on, and we'll post it on the Facebook page. So go over there and like it, and we'll share some of the resources with you guys there. And is that an end all? No, but that's, you know, it's a step in the right direction, is that there are good doctors looking at this, and they're good doctors trying to figure out how and what we can do to space the vaccines and give a little bit of breadth. You know, do I love vaccines? Absolutely not. Do I love polio? The answer is no.
Do I love pertussis? No. It's like a whoop, 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 whoop. Can I hear
you
yours?
did it.
Yes.
It's like, it's a weird cough.
It's a weird cough.
You know what we do? Well, let's go get an audio clip of it and chuck it on the Facebook page.
Okay,
So this will be to be continued, because I want to tag in Tom and maybe a couple other experts on this, and maybe we'll just host a forum through the show of experts that we bring on to talk about this subject. It's a controversial one. You know, we're going to get some hate mail because we didn't take a side right now. But, you know, that's not our job. Our job is to kind of look at everything and kind of look at everything objectively and see what the answers could be, right? I don't work for Big Pharma, and I don't work for coal. I work for you guys, and it's our job to make sure that we are looking at all sides of this and not get too campy.
Yeah, nice. And I want to actually echo that in the words of one of our fans. I want to encourage everybody to subscribe on iTunes to our show, The Health Bridge. And we had a woman, I think this is a woman, say, I love the vibe that is brought by this podcast. She gave us a 5-star review, Pedram.
Yay.
It's easy to listen to and comprehend. Subscribe. Another person gave us a 5-star review, and she said, I love everything Dr. Sarah and Pedram put out. They break down complicated concepts about health and wellness and make them simple and fun. Plus, they always seem to be having a blast on the show. Definitely worth a listen. So I'm reading these mostly because I want to make the point that, you know, Pedram and I are taking these controversial topics, and sometimes we're still investigating and still gathering the evidence so that we can make an informed decision. And we want to share that process with you. We want to open the kimono. It's not like we have the final answer on vaccines. Are they good or bad? You know, what should you do in terms of Thimerosal and the evidence on Thimerosal? It's more that we want to help you make reasoned decisions that really are aligned with your values.
Thank you for bringing that up. This is a conversation we just recently had in a group just after the Bulletproof conference, and people are asking about, you know, what a doctor's role is. And in this day and age, a superior physician is likely to look at you and say, you know what, I don't know, but I'll find out. Because in the old days, you got 7 minutes to see a patient. They're banging through there. They've been waiting 2.5 hours to see you. They want to know something. They want you to say something with authority. And doctors have gotten stuck into this role of saying, well, it's this, or just take this, and just making these proclamations and saying, okay, move on, I got another person to see, and not being able to be a true scientist and look into it. So that's what we're going to do for you guys. That's what we're going to do over the course. This arc might take 2 months of bringing on different guests and asking them the right questions and diving in and discovering, but we're doing this together because that's how it works. It's science and due diligence and working to get answers and not just saying something because we feel like we need to or else we won't be credible. You know, good doctors will always look into things and do research for you.
Well, that's definitely something we have in common. You know, here's what we know, here's what we don't know. Here's what we're doing now with vaccinating our own kids. So hopefully that's really of value to you as our listener. We know how difficult it is to make these decisions about vaccination, both for yourself and also for your children. So we hope that this felt supportive for you as we share our own experience with it.
Yeah, I love it. And you know, we've read a lot of stuff, but we're not going to cite it because we're not sure if it's right. Right? And so we're only going to kind of give you where we stand, and the answer is there's really no answer. Well, I'll give you my answer. There's no answer other than enhance your vitality and be stronger and better as much as you can in building a robust system to offset anything that comes at you. And that to me is just logical all the way around. And then, you know, whether you know, we take arrows all the time, and so whether you can avoid taking certain ones, well, that's the question. The answer is, you know, how much is baby versus bathwater with these vaccines?
You got it. I would add to that, avoid mercury. It is a neurotoxin. Avoid Thimerosal, and don't forget pertussis.
We'll see you guys next time. Let us know what you think on the Facebook page. Again, facebook.com/thehealthbridge. And subscribe if you haven't already in iTunes or wherever you're listening to this. We'll see you guys next time. Sarah, keep on at it. She's going to go pick up one of her kids right now.
That's right. Bring her some lunch with no mercury. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Pedram.
Thanks, guys.